Hey, I'm Noah.
Hey, I'm Steve.
And we work at Jump, and I asked my friend Steve to come in today to talk a little bit about the future of movies and how movies might develop over the next 10 years.
Awesome. Excited to do it. Let's jump in.
I'm happy you did. I wanted to ask you, first of all, about some of the deeper trends that we're seeing in society today. And I know that's such a huge question, but there's a lot of stuff that we're picking up that could impact the movie industry. Can you tell me a little bit about what some of those things might be?
Yeah, it's interesting if we think about social interactions around movies. In a lot of ways, it feels like the home experience of watching movies in your living room and the theater experience are maybe coming together in a few different ways. We could talk about that from a tech perspective, which hopefully we can get into later.
Sure.
But just from a social interaction perspective, it feels like the model of sitting in a dark room, staring with blinders on at a screen and not making a peep throughout the whole time. And by the way, don't take your cell phone out. Is something relegated to a previous time. It feels like we could be moving much more in a direction where there's more social interaction between people in a format that works, where you're not disrupting the experience, but you're actually building on the experience and you're strengthening those social interactions with others around you.
Sure. I mean, that does sound great. But home theater and the idea of home theater has been around for a long time. Why is this different?
So home theaters, I think, are really making a lot of strides. We have new levels of technological advancement around video, displays, TVs. We have 4K. There have been attempts at doing 3D. Audio is a whole nother thing where you can have speaker arrangements that can mimic, or maybe even some instances exceed, the quality of experience you're getting at a theater. I think that's just a tip of the iceberg for what could be the future of the home theater environment. And hey, by the way, you have all the comforts of your home, and maybe you can use your second or third screen in a way that's not disruptive, but actually additive to that movie experience.
So does that mean the end of movie theaters? I mean, this is something that's been predicted for a long time, right? We've heard a bunch of people talk about the end of movie theaters, but they seem to be kind of hanging on.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
So here's the thing. I see it as sort of a little bit of a, I don't want to say arms race, but
Sure.
You have the home theater environment sort of inching up in experiential environment where you have better strides in technology. So that's going to really have to push the theaters, in my opinion, to get even better and more experiential and cooler in the things that they do. It could be something like holographic, it could be augmented reality, it could be virtual reality. There's all these new avenues you could take. I see the future of video as going even beyond that in the tech perspective. What if I could actually see myself in a film? What if the audience could direct the film live as it's playing out through a whole bunch of different avenues, whether it's social media, whether it's my own sort of like neural networks and advanced sort of like, avenues where I could chart out the future movie that I can only imagine in my head and then see it play out on the screen. I think those are just a few areas that tech could really help the theater environment escalate to a whole nother level.
Absolutely. And speaking of the theater environment, let me ask you about the world as we know it today, and like the environmental world as we know it today. Are there factors in the environment that are going to change, and as a result of that are going to change the movie industry?
So clearly globalization is not a new thing, but we have seen further and further mixes, connections across cultures through different technological advancements, and just the fact that, in a lot of ways our world has gotten smaller and people traveling more in different places. I think there's going to be this incredible opportunity for different cultural influences to be showing up in different markets. A big one that I'm personally excited about is Japanese-inspired storytelling, right? Look at the opportunity for anime-style productions to make their way into the U.S. Ghost in the Shell, just a recent example. Granted, did not do fantastic at the box office.
May not be the best example, Steve.
But an indication of, hey, a studio willing to take a big bet, and there's a lot of opportunity there. That's just the tip of the iceberg of a lot of ways our society and our environment continues to mix, that we can see cultural influences going across borders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you kind of a follow-up question to that. As this world shrinks and we get to connect with each other a little bit more, what does that mean for the movie business in places like China and India and these emerging markets?
Yeah. Good question. A lot of opportunity we're seeing more and more over the years coming from some of these places, and clearly they have the Bollywoods of the world are large industries. I think there's a more macroeconomic trend that we need to keep our eyes on, and that's the proliferation of production and development of movies in less conventional places. Look at places like Netflix doing their originals, right? We have YouTube, which has been around for a while, but as technology continues to develop, making it easier and easier for low-budget productions to come out looking like high-budget films, that's going to open up a ton of opportunity for amateurs, for others to be able to harness the power of these distribution channels like the YouTubes of the world. And perhaps a whole other host of them that we can't even picture right now, to reach new audiences.
I'm sorry. So if that's true, and I think that it could be, over the next 10 years, what does that mean for the economics of movies? Because there's such a saturation of supply. What does that mean for demand?
Right. I mean, when you have more and more out there, it's going to really push people to have to figure out, okay, what do I want to access? How do I want to access it? And I think that could really potentially strain the big budget studios, because when you have these smaller independent studios that are able to produce high quality film, and that's a hypothesis, we'll see if it plays out, that sort of puts a glass ceiling in some regards on pricing for some of this stuff. And if I can access my content for a fraction of the price of dropping that $20 bill to go to the theater, or purchasing that Blu-ray, then why would I do it? It would be interesting to see how that plays out.
As movies transition away from what used to be film, right? And I think photography has done this similarly. Music has done this similarly. We're transitioning from selling a physical product to really selling ones and zeros. How does that change the way that we think about the movie industry?
Yeah, so clearly streaming has had a massive impact on the movie industry. I mean, when's the last time we could even go to a Blockbuster video to rent something, right? So, again, I think it goes back to some of these trends in these distribution channels like the YouTubes of the world. I keep going back to the big fish, but these non-traditional channels, or even like a Netflix where you do have to subscribe to get access to these things, will just put pressure on. I mean, look what it's doing to the cable industry. What happens next? Disney just announced that they are going to be putting together a streaming distribution channel and a break from that older style. So I think that model will prove to be one that will create big waves in the industry. Exactly how to be determined, but we're already seeing the writing on the wall.
How important do you think ownership of data is in that whole equation? Like consumer viewing habits and things like that.
You mean the ownership of like audience data and trends of that nature? Yeah. I mean, be critical. As it has been, we've seen how critical that is in the social media industry for things like ad placements and so forth. I think understanding your audience is really the foundation of creating incredible film, and to be able to really see who's watching what and when will allow me or anyone as a director to be able to then produce content that's ever more relevant and resonant with that audience. So I think the more access you have to information, the better you will be.
Okay. Do you think that information is going to lead towards more hyper-personalized movies, or do you think it's going to lead towards like more broad like movies with mass appeal, or is there maybe room for both of those things in this world 10 years from now that we're talking about?
There could be room for both. It feels like as more and more production houses and studios can make high quality film, then there would be an opportunity for greater segmentation in the market, so that I can tailor my content specifically for that subgroup that loves a certain type of horror or drama that a big budget studio could never produce, right? If I'm an auto manufacturer, I can only have X number of cars in my lineup. I can't create a car for every sort of subgroup that I want.
Yet.
Well, yet. Right? In the movie industry, right? Maybe that will be more of an opportunity, right? I mean, clearly having a huge budget for marketing and things of that nature is helpful, but who knows, as more direct-to-consumer channels come online, there could be a ton of opportunity to bypass some of the need for those huge budgets.
Great. One last question for you, Steve. It's two-parter. What worries you the most about the movie industry, and what are you the most excited about when you think about the movie industry in the next 10 years?
Yeah. What worries me, I'll start with that. What worries me about the movie industry is seeing a trend of large studios and creative institutions simply going back to what has worked in the past and relying on that to be able to cash in on the next big budget, high revenue generating film. We've seen a lot of studios, I don't want to name names, who have gone back and have done sequel after sequel. I've gone back.
You don't have to name names. It's everybody.
Right?
Sure.
And my worry is that we continue down that path and we lose the brilliance that comes from taking risks with wild new content that could push us in completely new directions.
Sure.
And I'm most excited about the opportunity for more people to have access to producing film in movies. I think there's a ton of creative talent out there that exists beyond the traditional studios as we think about them. It's just, how do you unlock that and unleash that incredible talent? The more we can have channels that allow people to create those things, see their visions come to life in ways that don't require years of production time, I think will allow us to uncover the next great Spielberg who might never have been known before. So
thank you for this.
No worries.
Very much appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.